Our next speaker is Stephen Karr, who received his PhD in American history with an emphasis on Native American history from Oklahoma State University. He was a director and Amundsen curator at the Southwest Museum of the American Indian for 6 years. Stephen, I just want to thank you for taking care of these objects during that time period. Thank you so much. He's certainly been a leader in the field, leading several institutions during his career, including the Briscoe Western Art Museum, the National Cowboy and Western Heritage Museum. He is currently the executive director of the Agua Caliente Cultural Museum, which should open soon. Please welcome Stephen to the podium.
Good afternoon, everyone, and I'd like to thank the Autry for inviting me here today to participate in this program, and it's nice to see a lot of old friends and familiar faces. In particular, I want to thank Joe for inviting me here today, and I want to thank him for accommodating my, I was worried about my presentation because I'm wearing a hard hat every day, or I'm on a plane every day. Or I'm driving back and forth from Los Angeles to Palm Springs. So I appreciate that, Joe, very much. So again, I'm Stephen Karr, and I am the director of the Agua Caliente Cultural Museum in Palm Springs, California. I work for the Agua Caliente Band of Cahuilla Indians. I report to the tribal council of the Agua Caliente Band of Cahuilla Indians, and I had the great honor to be asked to take over the executive directorship of the museum to build this new facility. And frankly, it's not just a facility, it's a cultural plaza in downtown Palm Springs on tribal land. And again, if any of us are familiar with the history of reservations throughout the United States, Palm Springs and Agua Caliente is in that area, Coachella Valley, is a checkerboard reservation. And so you have one section that is tribally owned and another section that is fee simple, tribally owned, fee simple, so on and so forth. And a goodly part of downtown Palm Springs is on tribal land. And I think when some of you from Los Angeles, if you drive into Palm Springs on Highway 111, right before you get to the visitor center of Palm Springs, there's a brown sign that's actually put up by Caltrans that says now entering Agua Caliente Reservation. And that's very important to the tribe because it's their homeland, and they've never left their homeland. They've been there since time immemorial, and this project is important to them because it's demonstrative of the fact that they've always been there, and the tribe will always be there. And this is part of that statement that they are making. So the Cultural Plaza, again, is in downtown Palm Springs on the corner of Indian Canyon and Tahquitz Canyon Way. Here is the museum right here. It is the Agua Caliente Cultural Museum is a nearly 50,000 square foot museum. Again, in the middle of downtown Palm Springs. This is the cultural campus here. This is Indian Canyon Boulevard here. This is Tahquitz Canyon Way. This entire Cultural Plaza comprises over 5.5 acres of land, and it's occupied again by the Agua Caliente Cultural Museum, and it is occupied by the spa at Seki. And Seki is the Cahuilla name for the spring that Palm Springs is named after. And the spring resides right here. You can't see it, but it is capped and covered, and it is on tribal land. So the reason why Palm Springs is called Palm Springs is because of Seki, which in loose Cahuilla translation is the sound of boiling water. And it is a mineral spring. And the Agua Caliente are, as you might imagine, they are a hot water people. There are some other hot water peoples that call Southern California home, but Agua Caliente has that in their name, and it's part of their identity, as part of who they are. The Cultural Plaza has been a 25-year hope and aspiration in the making within the tribal community. And we're nearing completion. We had a little thing called COVID that happened over the course of the past several years that I've been there, over 4 years now. And that was a wrench in the gears that none of us could ever have anticipated. And the tribe was steadfast in their commitment to this project. And even though the project at one point did shut down completely, I sat down with tribal council and they said, we are not backing away from this project. We're not backing away. And so we opened back, we started the project back up and moved forward. And so again, this represents something very important, not just to the tribe, but as the tribe sees it, it represents something very important for tribal peoples around the United States. And I can talk a little bit more about why that's the case as I move through some of these images, just to give you a sense of what's going on right now down in Palm Springs. This is an artist rendering of the campus, the museum here, and the spot Seki here, the Oasis Trail that bisects this. And the conceptual design of the museum was by John Paul Jones and Associates from Seattle. The on-site architectural firm is an outfit called JCJ. Its mothership is out of Hartford, Connecticut, but they do work with tribal communities around the nation. This is the groundbreaking of the groundbreaking ceremony that took place a little over 4 years ago. This is our former chairman, Jeff Gruby here. Jeff just recently stepped down after a dozen years of being tribal chair. It was on council for 16 years, and he was really instrumental. He was one of the reasons why I took the job. Because he's a tremendous leader and a really steady hand and someone that I admire deeply. His successor right here is Reid Milanovich, and Reid is the son of Richard Milanovich, who was the longtime, almost 30-year chairman of the Agua Caliente band, and Reid is, like Jeff, also a steady hand and someone that I'm very fortunate to be working for, along with the rest of tribal council. But this was 4 years ago, and fast forward about 2 years from that point, and this is the topping off ceremony for the museum where they laid the beam right about here. There's the crane, but they put the beam right here. And these were all of the tribal members. This certainly does not comprise the entirety of the tribe, but these were the tribal members that showed up the day for the topping off ceremony. And it was poignant, and I use that word sparingly because things cease to be poignant when you use the word too often. It was a poignant moment, and I was proud to be there, and I was glad to just be a background participant in something that meant that, again, a quarter century worth of effort from this community to get this museum built. Some people are gone. But their spirit continues to participate. It participates through their family members. It participates through the will of the community at large. And it participates with the people that they've asked to participate in with them. And I, again, consider myself fortunate to be with that. This is the campus right here in, again, downtown Palm Springs. This is Indian Canyon Boulevard. This is Taquash Canyon Way. This is the spot Seki. This is the Agua Caliente Cultural Museum, and the Seki, the actual mineral spring, is capped and under the ground right there. But if any of you are familiar with Palm Springs, Southern California, Palm Springs is has a full-time community of about 40 to 45,000 people. In the winter months, the spring months, it swells to 3 times that size. People from around the world come to the Coachella Valley. There's a little thing called Coachella going on right now in the Coachella Valley, and it's something to behold. And the older I get, it becomes even more something to behold. The tribe knew that the cultural campus, they considered putting it in many, many different places. And if you're familiar with the tribe, a lot of tribal land is in Indian canyons, which are otherworldly and incredibly beautiful and are really the tribe itself and the clans are derivative of these canyons that exist in this area. And they had considered portions of the canyon. They had considered this area, that area. They finally landed on this part of tribal land because they said, we wanted to make a statement not only to our own community, but we wanted to make a statement to the community at large. And that was that we are members of this broader community called Palm Springs, Coachella Valley, Southern California, California, and beyond. And we wanted as many people as possible to have access to this facility. And they knew that putting it downtown in a place like Palm Springs, it would draw that kind of attention. So we're looking kind of northeast toward outside of town. This is the other view, looking kind of southwest a little bit. But this is the museum right here. Again, 50,000 square feet. This is the spa at Seki, and where the tribe is sharing its mineral waters with people from around the world if they so please to do so. And a very exciting part of everything that we're doing here. But operationally, and Delphine, you talked about things like where do people park? Well, they park right here. And where's the concession? It's right here. Operationally, the tribe, that's front and center for everybody. And I really appreciate you mentioning those things because we care about that. And Rick knows, and Steve knows, and Joe, anyone who's and the board here who participating, you have to pay attention to those things. And Tribal Council knew this, and it was front and center. It's really fantastic. I knew this was a different project for me personally for a host of different reasons. I've worked in museums my entire professional career all around the country, most particularly here in California, and most particularly here at the Autry for many years. But when I first had the good fortune of sitting down with Tribal Council and speaking with them they called up and said, hey, why don't you come down and talk to us about this job? I sat down with Tribal Council in one of the conference rooms at the Tribal Administrative Plaza on Dinah Shore there in Palm Springs. And one of the first questions I asked after we moved through the pleasantries was, who's your audience? Who do you want your audience to be? And Jeff Gruby, the tribal chairman, said, tribal membership is the first audience. They are the first audience. Everybody else is very important. We love everybody else. The tribal community is the first audience. And I was asked to put pen to paper and sit down with council a little while later and talk about how we could express that in some respects. And what we landed on was that the Agua Caliente Cultural Museum is to be a teaching tool for tribal youth. It is to be a cultural resource for tribal adults, and it is to be a lasting legacy for tribal elders. And that's what it represents for the community. And it is also meant as the primary audience. The secondary audience, very important, everybody else. It's an opportunity to educate people about who the Agua Caliente Band is and what's important to them, what's important about their history, what's important about their culture, what's important about the region that they have called home since time immemorial. That was one of the things that I knew would make this project different. And anecdotally, and I was telling Jim this earlier when we were sitting down, that I was seeing Kevin Gover in DC, and he was helping us get our first traveling show to the temporary exhibit space, the Horace Pulaw photography exhibition. And we were talking about this very fact, and Kevin asked, who's the audience? And I said, the Tribal Council told me that membership is, and Kevin said, I'm so pleased to hear that. I'm so pleased to hear that because it's a stake in the ground, and it tells people, not just within the community, but everywhere, that the tribe is focusing on elements from within that it can share from outside after things have been considered on the inside. So it's really special. And one of the other things, though, so we took that mandate, the staff, and I was asked, go out and hire people, make this work, and report back to council and report back to membership. We work with tribal membership and we work with tribal council. Every voice you hear or you will hear in the museum is a tribal voice. There are no actors. There are no people that we've hired to do this or that. Tribal membership is doing everything. And we're working with tribal members, we're working with youth, we're working with elders, we're working with male, female, it doesn't matter. We're working with tribal membership to make certain that all the faces and all the voices that are seen throughout this entire 10,000 square foot permanent exhibition represents the tribal community. One of the other things that demonstrated to me how different this project was going to be, in the summer of 2018, they were digging the foundation for the museum side. This is the cultural campus right here, Indian Canyon and Tockwitch Canyon right here. And they were digging the foundation for the museum and digging out a big hole so that we could have a basement. And they always have cultural monitors on site, and it was being headed up by Patricia Garcia, who's our great director of the Tribal Historic Preservation Office, longtime director of that office for the Agua Caliente band. And they had the cultural monitors out there that day, and they started to find a great deal of artifacts of great importance. And tribal council got together and with a lot of tribal membership, and they had a meeting, and they stopped construction on a dime. It was a multi-million dollar project on the cultural campus. They maintained general conditions for 3 months, stopped everything. That meant that they kept all of the construction company in the wings, but said, don't do anything. They hired a cultural resource management outfit, a big one, here in Southern California, and they went, and for 3 months, they shut the project down, and they started excavating. And they didn't stop until they had appropriately and very correctly, and Karima Richardson is helping on some things at a really wonderful person that I work with here occasionally. She knows some of this story as an archaeologist. I am not that. But it was, the tribe said, this is too important. The building is important, but our cultural heritage is more important. And it stopped, and they dug for 3 months. Tribal members came in, they participated with the Cultural Resource Management Group, and they found a great deal of archaeological material, countless pieces of archaeological material that spoke to the tribe's history in that region. And it spoke to the tribe's narrative. And strangely or not, there are still people who question the length of time that the Agua Caliente peoples and their ancestors have been living in this part of the Coachella Valley. Strangely or not, there still are. They did carbon dating, carbon analysis that demonstrated that some of the pieces, and this is considered high fill because it's so alluvial and things coming off of the mountain, it wasn't a deep dig. They did carbon dating and destructive analysis that dated some pieces between 6,000 and 8,000 years old. And that's early. If they dug deeper, they would have found even more that went back 12, 15, 20,000, 25,000. Are we rewriting history books at this moment in anthropological and archaeological texts? I would say that we are. So this fit very nicely in with as the tribe understood itself, and it was their opportunity then to say, this is what we found, and this is what we knew all along, and we want to share this with you. Some of the pieces that came out, the other interesting part of this evolution in the project was that tribal membership and tribal council said, we have to use these pieces in the new museum. We have to tell people where these pieces came from and what they represent to our community. So the curatorial team and everyone else immediately got together, and we came up with a scheme working with tribal members, and we presented it to tribal council. And these are just, again, some other fantastic pieces that were found. This one piece in particular is a half dollar size piece of abalone with a perfect pinhole there. It was clearly worn as adornment for someone. Obviously, where does it come from? It comes from the ocean. And while Palm Springs is not that far away from the ocean, in some respects it is. And it also demonstrates what the tribe always knew, that Palm Springs and that region of the Coachella Valley has always been a cultural crossroads. And it wasn't a cultural crossroads when the Spanish first arrived. It wasn't a cultural crossroads when early Mexico arrived. And it certainly wasn't when the gold rushers came through, when European Americans or Anglo-Americans came through. It was a cultural crossroads for thousands and thousands of years before any European showed up. And this is something else, again, that's very, very important for the tribe to tell other people about. And so a lot of these items, these are all been published in the tribe's magazine that they publish, and not unlike what Lynn was talking about with San Manuel's fine publication. Agua Caliente has one, Miawe, which loosely in the Cahuilla, the desert Cahuilla dialect means hello. These were all published, but this incredible pestle, and of course these fantastic shell adornment pieces, the mano and matate, again, that speak to so much of the culture in this region. These were things that were unexpected, and yet they were immediately things that membership wanted to incorporate within this project. And I'm purposely not showing you anything from inside the building, in part because the shell and core of the building was just completed. And we haven't actually, as a staff, even moved into the building yet. And we hope to within the next, say, 2 to 4 weeks. The exhibit right now is currently in fabrication. Once the staff moves in, we will begin to move the fabrication pieces on site. And again, all of the museum people here or people who run museums who have run through this process know this, that we're moving into this next stage. We hope to open within, I'd say the expectation is either late 2022 or early 2023. And again, it's been a moving target. COVID was the most unexpected thing any of us ever could have imagined. And the tribe has really, I think, been incredibly accommodating to the staff and employees, and making certain that we have the resources to get the job done for the community. And again, some other fantastic projectile points that were found there. And again, they found items that they were able to identify. They came from as far north as the Napa Valley. They came from as far south as the Flagstaff, Arizona region, certain stone pieces that they found. But just again, demonstrating that Agua Caliente and Cahuilla territory has always been a cultural crossroads. And it isn't just today that people from around the world come to Palm Springs, or what is today called Palm Springs, but that people have been coming from around the American Southwest and portions of North America to that region for thousands and thousands of years. And it's part of their identity, and it's part of who they are. So it's something that I think demonstrates a community's commitment to a project. It's been a long time in the making, and I get a lot of, I talk to tribal members. My job is to work with tribal members. That's my job. And if a tribal member calls me, my job is to call them back and ask them what they need. And I get a lot of elders calling me up because this is a project that has been, and Delphine, it was what the elder said at the end, that it took our lifetime to build this, and it'll take your lifetime to fill it. I hear a very similar thing among the elders at Agua Caliente, and there's one elder in particular, Millie Brown, who had been on the front end of this project with Reid Milanovich, Chairman Reid Milanovich, for many years. And she called me just the other day, and she said, you know, we got to make this happen. And she said, I'm feeling good about this because it's going to happen before I'm gone. And that was something that I took to heart as well. So it's about a community, it's about a culture, it's about a commitment, and a tribe getting together and saying, we're going to do this, and many, many bumps in the road, and I imagine how many you may have had within your community, but it's coming to fruition, and we see the light at the end of the tunnel. And again, it's a really wonderful experience to be a part of this, and it's something that is always looking for partnerships with other institutions, with be they large ones with fantastic tribal collections like the Autry or NMAI or the Herd or any other institution, but it's also reaching out to other tribal institutions and asking, what are you doing? Because one of the other things that the tribe committed to was to building 2,200 square feet of temporary exhibition space. So the permanent gallery is about 10,000 square feet dedicated to the history and culture of the Agua Caliente band. But the other thing that the tribe has very purposely done is build this 2,200 square foot space of temporary gallery space. And the only directive to me from tribal council is we want to see native exhibitions in this space, and we don't care where it's from. We want Indian country represented in this gallery. So please work on that. So when I'm not trying to get the building done, I'm trying to reach out to other tribal communities and asking them, how can we work with you to get your tribe represented in our temporary gallery for 3, 4, 5 months out of the year? Maybe we can talk about that a little bit when we're done here today. But it's been, it's a fantastic project for the tribe. I think in the end, it's a fantastic project for Indian country, and it's a fantastic project for museums at large because there are aspirational goals as well. And as I also heard in your fantastic film that we saw, that the tribe does aspire that the museum someday be accredited by the American Alliance of Museums. And I really appreciate that because as the museum professionals in the room, we know that most museums are not accredited. And the public, general public does not know that. They assume that all museums are in fact accredited. So it's really something that it's a fantastic project for a white guy that's worked in Indian country his whole year. But it's also, I think for a group of people here today to be able to hear these stories about dreams and aspirations that have come to fruition and dreams and aspirations that are nearly there. It speaks to a broader commitment that we have in this field, and it speaks to a broader commitment that I think that tribal peoples have to one another. And those of us, again, who are fortunate enough to work with you, we're grateful for that commitment that you all have. Again, this is my life, just a snapshot of what I do on a daily basis. I'm fortunate to do it, and I'm just, again, grateful to the Autry, grateful for the invitation from Joe Horse Capture, and grateful for all of your time and consideration today. Thanks so much.
That was great. Thank you. Thank you. I was fortunate. Stephen gave me a tour of the facility. My whole sense of time, was it spring 2020 or 21? Was it last summer? Well, and I was going to say that. So I drove out last summer. I drove out to Palm Springs, met with Stephen for the first time. And, I wanted to be polite, so I wore my pants. What else am I going to wear? I wore my pants that I need to iron, let's put it that way, and shirt and sport coat and everything. And it was very, very nice. A great visit. He brought me to the facility before HVAC had been installed. I was sweating to the oldies. It was great, and it's huge. I mean, when you say 10,000 square feet, no, how big is the whole? 50,000. And in your mind, you go, what does 50,000 look like? Trust me, it's huge. It's going to be a phenomenally impressive facility, and I look forward to it being open. It's going to be great.